Welcome back to Dome Theory. This
Fuck
is
out of here.
episode 125. I'm Nate Sperlin. On my left, right there, pointing at him, that is Anthony Vasquez. Over here, this is Isaiah Nins. How are you gentlemen doing today?
Doing fantastic as always. New day, new blessings. We here, but it's cold outside, so stay warm.
It's big cold. It's massive
Big cold.
cold for some reason. Zay, how you doing?
It snowed. Let it snow.
It did. It
It
did
did
snow.
actually
It
snow.
did snow.
What?
And it stuck. And it stuck, which is
What was that
crazy.
first time in 2 years?
Yes, first time in 2 years. Never thought I'd see that again, honestly. Before we get into it, we have to remind you to subscribe to the podcast and check out all the content on CLNS. We have a great show for you today. We are talking about the Celtics, we're talking about Bill Belichick, and we're talking about the NFL playoffs. But before we get into any of that, let's pay some bills and talk about this ad here. The NFL regular season is wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get 150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 guaranteed in bonus bets, win or lose, when you place that first $5 bet. The app is so easy to use. There are so many different ways to bet. You have live same game parlays. You have fine bets in the new Explorer tab. You have Make a Parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays and more. So visit fanduel.com/Boston and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. This disclaimer here: in Massachusetts, you must be over 21 and present in Massachusetts. Hope is here. First online real money wager only. $5 pregame money line wager required. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or 1-800-GAM-1234. All right, gentlemen, let's talk about some sports. First of all, this is a Boston podcast. And we are going to start off by talking about the Celtics, who have the best record in the NBA, 31-9, about halfway through the NBA season. So that being said, Vasquez, who is the biggest threat in the NBA to the Boston Celtics?
Who is the biggest threat in the NBA to the Boston Celtics? It's really hard to make that determination. I would answer it in two questions. One, I would answer it in the Eastern Conference, and I would argue that their biggest competition would have to be Philadelphia. They did lose James Harden, who was a fundamental piece of their offense, but with Nick Nurse running the show and additional opportunities for Tyrese Maxey, they have blossomed beyond belief. Joel Embiid is averaging a cool 34 and 11, and he's dominating as he always has. So he's always going to present problems for them, especially on the inside. How he performs in the postseason, we'll see. If we were to extend it beyond the entire NBA, I would argue the Thunder. Yes, there's a lot of bias in there being a Thunder fan, but you know what? They're an exciting team. They're a young team. The Celtics are also young, so they like to pick up the pace. And you need a team that's willing to match that. Not a lot of teams can do that except them.
Isaiah?
I would actually go a different direction. Last year was the Magic that held the Celtics number. This year, I think it's the Pacers. I think they've played three times. Pacers won twice. There's a lot of Neesmith anger that occurs every time they play. He feels very hard done by, especially from those posts where it's the Celtics traded pennies or whatever it is, and he's the pennies. So with the acquisition of Siakam today, I think that the Pacers are in an even better spot to really confront them. They gave up, Bruce Brown and a couple bench guys and some picks, two firsts. I think a third is somewhere arranged in there. But that's the team that can bring it to the Celtics. Where Jalen and Jason in the last 3 years, they've trailed off in 3-point shooting. Um, and the Pacers are not a good defensive team, but their offensive pace is out of this world. So if it's a game where we have to keep up, the Pacers are they're able to combat with them and overcome them. We'll see how it works out in a playoff setting. Obviously, the Pacers haven't been there. Halliburton hasn't had that kind of opportunity yet. But with that, with Siakam added, it should be a tough time for the Celtics.
All right, I'm going to take the Vasquez approach here. I'm going to tell you one team in the East, and I'm going to tell you one team in the West. First of all, in the East, I can't believe we're sleeping on the Milwaukee Bucks. I understand that they're going through a difficult rough patch right now, but I think that this is something that is going to help them be better come playoff time. You have Giannis Antetokounmpo, two-time MVP, two-time Finals MVP. Actually, no, excuse me, one-time Finals MVP. Won the championship. He has that championship medal. He's just simply special when he gets that rebound and he just goes full court towards the other side. There's not really much that you can do to stop him. And on top of that, you have Damian Lillard, Dame time, who is literally you need to guard him as soon as he gets out his car before he even gets into the locker room and he changes into the jersey. So for that reason, that high-powered offense is just something that I think can keep up with the high-powered offense of the Celtics. Defensively, they're still working it out, and we have to see how that goes. Also, they have a new coach, so we're trying to figure that out too, how that's going to look. But overall, when you're looking at two superstars who can take over a game and also complement each other well, look no further than Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's my answer for the East. Now for the West, we have to start talking about the Clippers, man. We have to start respecting them. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, on and on. Zubats, Terrence Mann, so many other players, key contributor players that lots of teams would be dying to have. And it's starting to look like they're figuring it out. They're starting to look like they're having the success that they are supposed to have with when you have four Hall of Fame players on this team. So when they first got James Harden, it kind of looked funky. But again, like I just said, they're starting to figure it out. We're seeing Kawhi Leonard go off and be the number one option. We're seeing Paul George be the second option and play like a number one option, especially last night when he goes crazy for like, what was it, like 10 straight points against OKC. So
Yep.
seeing all that, seeing that they have the leadership in Ty Lue and Russell Westbrook, seeing that they have the point guards in Russell Westbrook and James Harden, they have the scoring in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, they have the defense in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, they have the big men in Zubats, they have Tice is a big pickup. Also, Mason Plumlee, who's going to get some more minutes because Tice is hurt now. Not Tice, excuse me. Zubats is hurt now. So seeing all that come together, the only issue with them is health, and that's out of all the teams in the NBA, that is the biggest if in the NBA, I feel like. But if they're able to stay healthy and they're able to get to the finals, I think that the Clippers could potentially be the biggest challenge that the Celtics have faced this season.
This is year five of what if on the Clippers, right?
Quite
Year five
literally.
where it's well if they're healthy and they've been healthy so far. And James Harden, I don't think he's got enough credit after he was getting killed early on. First requesting and then his play early on. I think they lost five straight, something like that, and they've
Six
been on a
straight.
tear since. Six straight, and they've been on a tear since. I think I had said it yesterday. He's 46, 41, and 80 something shooting wise, his splits. So if they're healthy, once again, they're a threat. But it's if they're healthy. And every year that if fails. And they've only added James Harden, who has more ifs in his health concerns. So, and playoff concerns, performance concerns. Now, this time, just like with Joel Embiid, he won't be the main guy that they're looking to. Um, but he still has to perform. And so there are issues there. They haven't materialized yet, which is good for the Clippers, but it's a long season.
Definitely. I think something that's really underappreciated in this roster is Westbrook and his willingness to come off the bench, his willingness to be that sixth man, his willingness to be that energizer buddy for the lineup. That was exceptionally well needed. It's a demonstration of leadership that we didn't see in Los Angeles when he was in the Lakers. So seeing this difference in mindset has truly allowed the team to flourish. I mean, did we think they were going to all perform well on the court together? I don't know. It seems like too many mouths to feed.
I have to debunk one thing there. The leadership from Russell Westbrook was always there. When you see him in Oklahoma City, when you see him in Houston, when you see him in Washington, when you see him on the Lakers, actually being the only one who sacrificed on the Lakers, and then you see him in the clip on the Clippers, you hear about teammates all the time call him the best teammate they've ever had. We heard stories when he was in Los Angeles, the Lakers on the Lakers, about him being the vampire in the locker room. Well, the Lakers are in the same exact situation they were last year, and LeBron is as passive aggressive as ever. So it doesn't really look like anything has changed for the Lakers, but they removed the cancer from the locker room. That doesn't make sense to me. I would be remiss if I completely ignore the Denver Nuggets, who are the NBA champions and deserve to be treated as such, as a contender to knock off the Celtics. Actually, let me rephrase that: as the Celtics are contenders to knock off the Denver Nuggets. Let's give the Nuggets their respect. Let's move on. We're going to talk about the big trade that happened today. We're going to talk about the Pascal Siakam trade that Isaiah mentioned earlier. In this trade, we have the Raptors receiving Bruce Brown, Jaden Nora, Kira Lewis, two 2024 first round picks, and one 2026 first round pick. And the Pacers are going to receive Pascal Siakam and a future second round pick. And the Pelicans are in this trade somehow. I guess they just wanted some money because that's all they got. So that being said, Anthony Vasquez, who won the trade?
Who won the trade? When you look at it immediately, getting 3 first-round picks for somebody who already said they were going to test the free agency market would come off as a win for Toronto. You get pieces with which to trade and hopefully build around Scotty Barnes. You got Bruce Brown, who isn't an all-world player, but he is a very, very good role player. I think he'll fit well on this team. I think he'll have some value. Indiana, it's a very risky move. If they don't re-sign this guy at the end of the offseason, which is far from a guarantee, then you essentially wasted 3 first-round picks on a rental when you could have easily used those to build around Tyrese Halliburton, and we know how good he is and how young he is. That being said, if Indiana can get him on a reasonable deal, I think they'll come out well. Siakam is a fantastic player. I think he'll work well within the offense that Indiana likes to run. I think it's another player for Tyrese to pass the ball to. He's already averaging 12 assists. Maybe he averages 13, 14 now. So there's a lot of potential. But again, the Pacers better make sure they are going to re-sign him, because if they don't, this is going to be a disaster very quickly.
Isaiah, what do you think?
Well, it came out recently, what was just PR report. He doesn't do exactly news, but whoever fed him the report, he said it that this was Siakam's preferred destination, that he had been in communication with Halliburton before this. So it seemed like, regardless of whether he went there now or not, it seemed like he was going to end up there. They're also going to be a team with money. So it works out that way. Like I said before, if they get to firing, that's a top team right there. They get an anchor who can actually start playing some defense for them. And just another real scorer, Bruce Brown, like Vasquez said, he would score the loudest 10 points you've ever seen in your life. Every time, I mean, he's like the front running champion. That's the kind of kind of player that a team wants, that when he's in the game and he makes the shot, the other team goes to commercial. Like that's just what it is. They call the timeout and get out of there. So Toronto is clearly done with this team. They're ready to start anew. Give up what would remain from 2019, begin this new squad. It would have been interesting if Toppin went there and they could just have their reunite, the reigniting of the
Quickly
Knicks
and Barrett.
with Quickly
The Toronto Knicks
and Toppin. Yeah, so that would have been interesting if they could reunite there. But I think that the Pacers won this because I think Siakam's staying. So with getting the superstar, usually that means you win, and Pacers got their star.
Are we calling Siakam a superstar now? Has he passed the superstar check?
He's not my superstar.
I don't know. I don't know how marketable he is, but in Indiana, he's a superstar.
Well, and he was a superstar in Indiana. All right. So I think that the Pacers are taking a really big risk. If Pascal Siakam doesn't re-sign with this team, I think the Raptors have made out like bandits. You have Bruce Brown, who is someone who has won a championship, someone who can help the young guys progress. You have 3 first-round picks from this. You also have Jaden Nora, who's a pretty good shooter. I'm not really familiar with Kira Lewis. This is the first time I've heard his name, so maybe he's good. We'll see. So I think this is something that we're gonna have to wait and see. On the Pacer side of it, this kind of feels like a win now move, especially when you're trading for an expiring contract, as I just mentioned. The amount of stuff that you've given up to trade for this expiring contract. This really seems to be a situation where they have to impress Pascal Siakam. They have to be functional as an organization. They have to be functional as a team to get him to resign. Like Isaiah said, the chances of him re-signing in Indiana, I would have to hope, are huge because why would Indiana make this trade if Pascal Siakam has said routinely that he wanted to test free agency in this upcoming summer? So we have to wait and see. But moving on to my next question about this Pascal Siakam
Wait,
trade.
let me say one more
Go
thing.
ahead.
One more thing on that. The other key part of this is that all of the power was removed from Siakam, who was telling Masai and the Raptors repeatedly that no, he's not committing to you, and he's gonna figure it out at the end, like everyone else would. Which is interesting because now he says he's heartbroken that they traded him when they made a business decision just as he did. You can't say, well, maybe I'll come back or not. No, they're getting rid of you, and now that he's on the Pacers, there's only so many options that he can go to next year. Is he going to join the Spurs? Is he going to join the Hornets? Is he going to join the Pistons? Is he going to join the teams that are going to have money, but are going to be in a significantly worse place than the Pacers next year? I don't think so. Because the Pacers can give him money. Is a little bit more money worth playing in Detroit or San Antonio or Charlotte? I don't think so.
San Antonio, maybe. Because if Pascal Siakam and Victor Wembanyama together,
Not with
and
Pop.
let's say hypothetically they are also able to get DeJounte Murray and they have Devin Vassell, that might be a playoff team, maybe
That's
even
a
a
Not with
top six
not
team.
with Pop. Not with
So
Pop.
very interesting one.
1000% with Pop. Pop is one of the most intellectual basketball minds we've ever seen. So from that,
Sure.
from that,
When
from
he
that
when he when his
perspective,
heart was in the game, that's not in the game anymore.
but
He's just around.
from that perspective, I first of all, I just saw a video on Twitter of Coach Popovich coaching up the young guys. I don't think we're ready to talk about that. To say that he's past it. I'm not ready to call him
Coaching him
Bill
up to
as
what six? Oh my goodness!
as
Coaching him up to the sixth win, seventh win this season.
I mean, hey, Wembanyama is open and they don't pass him the ball.
I
That's
mean,
not
listen,
Pop's fault.
That's
they're
Sohan
trying to
running
tank
point
for better
guard. That's
picks. They just
he's
want
got Sohan playing
better
point
picks.
guard.
I mean,
Okay.
move. Let's move on to the next question. Does this Pascal Siakam trade change the landscape of the NBA playoffs at all?
No.
Why
Toronto
not?
wasn't gonna make it. Toronto wasn't gonna make it to the playoffs anyways, and if they were gonna be a terrible team.
Mhm.
Indiana, yes, this trade makes them more talented, but I mean, we're talking about compared to the top teams in the East. I think there is still a clear divide between that upper echelon where we're talking about the Celtics and the Sixers and the Bucks, and even the Heat. I will give the Heat a legacy pass because of Spoelstra and their playoff medal. Indiana still has another move or two to make before we really take them seriously. But again, this is a very good step. And sometimes
The
if you're a
Pacers
team
are up
like
there though.
Indiana, a good step is good enough.
The Pacers are up there. They're right up there with those top teams right now.
What makes you say that?
Off of talent or production?
Production. They're in sixth, only a couple games out from like the three. Obviously, there's a gap between them and the three, but they're only a couple games out. I mean, once again, playoff time, defense matters, and they don't have it. Now they've gotten a little bit with Siakam, but in terms of right now production, they're right up there with the other teams.
I'm
I mean, I
curious.
think them and the Cavs are pretty close.
I'm curious
Yeah.
to see when we get to playoff time the impact that Pascal Siakam has because as we all know in the playoffs the game starts to slow down and I'm curious to see if the Pacers shoot at will offense can translate to the playoffs. And if it can't translate to the playoffs, I think that the magnoscope, the magnifying glass, excuse me, is going to be more and more on Pascal Siakam because he is the one with the championship success. And I think that they would lean on him more to score in those situations when the offense has to actually be run versus just getting a rebound and shooting in 5 seconds.
Hey, last year the Kings played shootout offense and not much defense. Didn't work out well, but they made it there and they looked good.
Good point.
They went
Good
against
point.
Steph Curry, man. What are you gonna do?
I'm still surprised Golden State beat them now. In hindsight, they might be one of those teams where it's still too young. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Sometime maybe next year Indiana will be better with that postseason experience and that understanding. Um, but we'll see with the benefit of time.
Yeah. Let's change sports. Just talked about some basketball. Let's talk about some football. First, let's talk about Bill Belichick. who has left the Patriots after 24 seasons. His record was 266 wins to 121 losses as Patriots head coach, 19 consecutive winning seasons from 2001 to 2019, 17 division titles, 9 AFC championships, six Super Bowl championships, 33 career victories, and he appears to be chasing Don Shula, who has the all-time record at 347. So it appears that the Cowboys are off the table. But where do you think Bill Belichick should go?
I Go ahead. Why Philadelphia? Before I go,
Philadelphia.
just because
Um,
Philadelphia.
that's no, because that's the team that's set up the best. Does he? Okay, let's assume he hasn't said it. Let's assume he's playing to beat Don Shula's record. Can he get there in a few seasons playing for the Commanders? No.
No,
Can he get there in a few seasons playing for the Chargers with the roster they have now? No. Can
maybe
he do that in Atlanta? Probably not, depending on if
Probably.
they get a quarterback.
depending on the
Probably not.
quarterback.
But if the Eagles let go Sirianni, which it doesn't appear they will, but they might. If they do, that's clearly the best setup. They have a lot of guys that this off season it might work out or not for them. They got a lot of expirings, a lot of guys that need money. We already saw Kelsey is gone. Um, we don't know what that Goddard situation with Hurts looks like. Maybe that was just a heat of the moment thing. We don't know. But in terms of situations, that's the best situation on the table for Belichick.
I agree. I think that they have the most talent. I think that it's clear that the talent that they've had this season has been misused. When you consider you, I think I saw one of those, those charts, those wide receiver charts where you see every single route a wide receiver has ran throughout the course of a game, and
Mhm.
Devontae Smith is just running straight verticals, like every single play he has to run, he has a straight vertical. So Devontae Smith is more dynamic than that. Jalen Hurts is also more dynamic than what we've seen, what he was allowed to do this season. So I think that if there was someone and also the defense is just a mess in general. Like they had Sean Desai, then they moved to Matt Patricia, and Matt Patricia somehow made the worst defense worse. So I think, especially on the defensive side of the ball, Bill Belichick can definitely clean that up. Offensively, that's kind of where I'm a little hesitant because I I wonder if Bill Belichick has kept up with the pace that the modern offense is at now.
He's gonna have
And
Devontae
if he
Smith
keeps
running five
Patricia
yard
on
slants all
defense,
day.
What'd you say,
Devontae, I
Vasquez?
don't. No, I'm saying he's about to have Devontae Smith looking like Julian Edelman running 5 yard slants all freaking game.
Well, Devontae Smith could take that 5 yard slant and take it 80 yards. So
I sure do
if
hope that, honestly. But
Belichick could definitely clean up the defense, but again, if he keeps Patricia, then we don't know.
very valid point. Which is why, honestly, he should just go to Atlanta. Atlanta has the youth. They have the team. You have Drake London. You got Kyle Pitts. You got Bijan Robinson, all of whom have been criminally misused by Arthur Smith. Thank God he's
Arthur
gone.
Smith.
I
You
will
got
say, if the Falcons are somehow able to get Justin Fields with all that extra talent around him, that's scary. With Bill Belichick, that's very scary.
and you still got the defense who has a lot of solid pieces. We're talking about Jesse Bates, was one of the preeminent safeties in this league.
Mhm.
And Bill's a defensive mastermind. So who knows how he can use him. He can turn him into Ed Reed for all we know. Um, I do think that's personally nasty work if I'm the Falcons. I mean, we're talking about the coach who came back on us 28-3. It's bittersweet to say the least, but you're looking for the best coach. What else would you want?
Well, if he can spot all their weaknesses, then he can add to all their strengths, right?
That logic would dictate that, yeah.
All right.
I mean, if he's in
We're
Philadelphia or he's in Atlanta, I'm sure we're in for a really interesting season.
yeah.
I just want
we're
to see if either of those teams play the Patriots next season, what that game looks like. That's what we really want to see. We just want to see Bill have to coach against the Patriots next year
Would
and win.
they would Patriots fans boo him if he ever went
No,
back to
no,
Foxborough?
no.
no, they'd love
They'd be
him.
crazy too.
They'd want him
They,
to lose,
yeah, they'd want him to lose. They'd boo him
but
when the game starts, but when he's
yeah,
just talking and watching the players warm up and doing what he does, I think it's gonna be straight cheers.
FanDuel is the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Moving on to our next topic, staying with the topic of football, let's react to the wild card weekend results. I'm just going to read them off real quick. We have the Texans beating the Browns 45-14, the Chiefs beating the Dolphins 26-7, the Packers beating the Cowboys 48-32, the Lions beating the Rams 24-23, the Bills beating the Steelers 31-17, and finally the Buccaneers beating the Eagles 32-9. Anthony Vasquez, what is your biggest takeaway from wild card weekend?
Oh man, so many takeaways. I think the biggest takeaway we can take is, the Eagles are in bigger trouble than we give them credit for. The Eagles, they're in a lot more trouble than we give them credit for. Originally, we thought it was just a bad stretch, and then a bad stretch turned into bad multiple games. And that game, they were just completely disorganized. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't stop a nosebleed. They couldn't do anything. I would argue that the Cowboys' loss was the most shocking just because of how bad it was, and they were 16-0 at home.
Was it though? Was it the most shocking? It's almost like
listen,
someone on this very panel never took them seriously. Who could that
They had
be?
won what, like 16 games, 12 games straight at home.
It
Yes,
was
it's
16.
shocking.
and it wasn't even close. Like, they were dominating teams. But you know what? Death, taxes, and Cowboys choking in the playoffs. The three causes.
Isaiah, what is your
You want to
biggest
hear a
takeaway?
crazy number?
Yes.
Crazy number is that the teams that won outscored the losers in wild card weekend 206-102.
Wow.
They were blowing them out, dude. 104 points in football difference over 8 games. Is it 8?
6.
Something like that. Whatever. There were 6 games?
Yes.
Yes. Super wild card weekend.
Oh.
Texas A&M education, folks.
Oh, yeah. That was Syracuse first, though.
All right, relax.
My takeaway is just we gotta hope that these next few games they put it together, because this season was a disaster, and then the wild card weekend was a disaster. The only good game was Stafford's homecoming in Detroit, and it was close, and it looked like the Rams could really do it, and Stafford could break their hearts again, but they pulled it out. Now, obviously, Goff had a little bit more help than Stafford did. He got a couple of rushing touchdowns for the Lions in that game. Stafford had to do it out there just slinging it. But yeah, my expectation is that these games are going to be a little bit better now that we cleared some of that riffraff out. Now that real quarterbacks are involved and Baker Mayfield, we should be seeing some much better production than we had over the course of the season and the wild card round.
Good job, Isaiah. If this was that what is it, pardon the interruption, or what's the other one? The one where they give you points every time you make a good point. Around the horn, you'd get 5 points from me for that Baker Mayfield comment. Good job.
Like
my biggest takeaway is CJ Stroud is for real, man. I mean, first playoff game. Not even let me because he is the main story, but I think that we need to do more justice. CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans are for real. I saw a clip on Twitter of DeMeco Ryans explaining exactly what was going to happen to a defender, hit one of his defenders, and it turns into that defender getting an interception and taking it the other way for a pick 6. That is coaching. That is something that Mike McCarthy probably can't really do anymore, even though he's going to return for the Cowboys. So seeing that and seeing the youth movement that we're seeing in Houston and seeing that CJ Stroud is legit, we're seeing that, also understanding that they lost who was it? Tank Dell? What's his name? Who was like one of their really
Tank Dell. Yeah.
One of their really important receivers. Being able to beat this Browns defense that has been routinely one of the best in the league over the course of many years. And this season, they weren't the best defense, but they were top 5 for sure, maybe even top 3. Being able to put 45 points, which I understand is the offense didn't put 45 points on them. So let's say 31 points because it was 2 pick 6s. But being able to put 31 points on this Browns defense is really, really impressive, especially from a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback.
since we're talking about rookie quarterbacks and we're talking about first year starters, let's give a lot of credit to Jordan Love. I know, I'm sure you as a Bears fan, it hurts to see the Packers have another franchise quarterback. And wow, has he killed it. Same 272 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He almost had a perfect passer rating until they had to put it back in the game because that defense was all of a sudden non-existent. Um, it's interesting to see with them having the youngest team playing with the kind of heart that they do. It shows a lot of Matt LaFleur's brilliance. It was easy to give Aaron Rodgers a lot of the credit the first few years, especially as they was going 13-3 back to back to back. But I think now he's had a chance to shine. So we'll see
Jordan
what happens.
Jordan Love had a throw during that Cowboys game, and I was like, "Oh boy, that was impressive." I believe
Are
he
you
was,
talking about the throw off the back step that went into
yeah,
the touchdown?
yeah,
Oh my
and and
God, that
and
was
the way that he fit it into the defender's hand was like right here, and the football just zoom right there, touchdown.
it's the
Great,
kind of throw
great
that you
throw.
would see from Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. Even Patrick Mahomes, maybe. So seeing that was very, very impressive. Also, let's take Isaiah's stat about the winning teams dominating the losing teams. Think about how much worse it would be if the Cowboys didn't start putting up garbage touchdowns. Think about that. The Cowboys
It
were
would have been
down 48-16, I believe, at one point. They were down 30. They were definitely down 30.
They were down
And
32.
27-0. Yeah, at the first
so seeing
half.
that is crazy. Also, Cowboys, as always, unprepared. Like I said, I never really take them seriously. And another thing, understanding that their defense is built to play from with the lead, understanding that Aaron Jones, I understand he hasn't played much all season. Believe me, my fantasy team suffered from that. But he's still one of the best running backs in the game. And to see him just completely gash the Cowboys defensive line and get into the secondary, get into the linebackers, get into the secondary like that, and see him be unstoppable in that way was really, really impressive. Now, that being said, I don't know if that's going to continue next week, but it was really, really impressive to see. So moving on, we have two teams that laid massive, massive eggs, the Cowboys and the Eagles. Isaiah, if you're in the Cowboys position, what are you doing?
Seeing what Trey Lance got, man. Why'd you get him in the first place? We got to see what Trey Lance is about. It's just so funny that this was really, and I had said it before, this felt like Dak's redemption year, where it was finally like he's putting it together. They're winning games. He's looking good. He's not throwing picks every single week. I mean, last year he missed 5 games and led the league in picks. I think it was like 14. Um, so it's crazy that this seemed like the year. They had home field. They couldn't be beaten at home field over like longer than a year, and it just all fell apart. And it's so easy to blame one single person each time, whether it's McCarthy or it's Dak or it's this defender. But it was just how the whole team collapsed when the Packers scored first. It was just like, oh man, like they gave up. It really was that kind of joke where it's like when the quarterback isn't playing from ahead to start.
Anthony,
They look like deer in headlights at their home field in Jerry World. And so, honestly, why even fire McCarthy? Whoever you get in next, it's going to be the same deal. So it's got to be that Dak is finally removed. Bring him into somewhere needs him. Steelers, no, I'm sure they wouldn't want that. But somebody can use Dak. Somebody has no quarterback right now, and they could use a quarterback. So I don't know who that is. Someone's gonna get him. Imagine it was New York. Imagine the Giants got Dak.
Oh my God.
Anthony, what is the name of the chat right now?
uh, Wait, fire all GMs chat.
Okay,
Nah,
shut
it's
up. No,
it's
not
Cam
you,
was
not
right.
you. Cam was right. Cam Newton was right, ladies and gentlemen. You guys talked
Oh,
crazy about him, talked crazy about the future Hall of Famer, one of the most legendary quarterbacks of all time. But if there's anyone who was qualified to say that, yo, Dak Prescott, you're a game manager, it is Cam Newton. And boy,
Hey,
was
well,
he
if
correct.
I bet the Cowboys wish he was a game manager that last game. If Dak was a game manager, probably been a game. He didn't manage the game at all.
Well,
if
that's what
Dak was a
happens when
game
you
manager, they would have lost by 40.
that's what happens when you allow a game manager to try and be a superstar. All right. So Vasquez, if you are in the Cowboys position, you have McCarthy who doesn't seem to have the team prepared for the playoffs. You have Dak Prescott who seems to shrink in the playoffs. What are you doing to make that situation better?
Okay, so first things first, McCarthy should have been fired already because you hired McCarthy for the sole purpose of getting to a Super Bowl. You didn't hire him to win 12 games every year. You didn't hire him to make the divisional playoffs every year. He fails to even do that. So you find yourself a championship coach. As far as Dak Prescott is concerned, I think, yeah, let's see what Trey Lance has. But realistically, Trey Lance isn't that good. Otherwise, he would still be in San Francisco. He
He
wouldn't
was
have gotten
hurt.
played out by a Mr. Irrelevant.
He was hurt.
So,
We have no
huh?
idea how good he is. He was hurt. He's been
Do
hurt.
do is he going to be that much better for them? Does he raise the ceiling for the Cowboys that much more? 5 years into the league
I'm gonna
already, or
say
how many years is
I'm
it now? Like 3, 4?
3-4 at least.
yes. I'm gonna
Yeah,
say yes. But it's like we don't know how good or how bad he is yet. We have
that's
no
a
idea.
fair point. I mean, if
And
I
Brock
was a
Purdy was
Cowboy,
clearly going to be the guy. That's why Trey Lance had to go. It was clearly going to be
true.
Brock. So why not just get something for a guy you know isn't going to be your quarterback? And they did.
That's a very valid point. I mean, listen, if I was the Cowboys, I would have fired Mike McCarthy. I would have given $25 million a year to Bill Belichick, have him run the team. I think his postseason medal would have done wonders for this team because they don't seem to get out of their own way. But then again, Bill doesn't want to deal with Jerry, so it just is what it is. The Cowboys are gonna stink next year. It is what it is.
Yeah. As I understand it, I believe they have to pay CD Lamb, Dak Prescott, and Michael Parsons.
Yes.
You're
That
basically gonna be playing those three guys the whole salary cap. So it's not looking great. Personally, I think you get rid of Dak. I think you get rid of Mike McCarthy. I think you have to start over at least from the quarterback position because Dak Prescott, he can put up numbers. He's an empty stat getter. That's what he is. He hasn't ever shown up in the playoffs. I can't really think of a big game where he's ever showed up in the regular season either. He just compiles stats and it's nice to look at. It's nice to watch, but when it's time to win and it's time to be a real quarterback, he doesn't do it. So from that standpoint, let's go out there. Let's get a real quarterback. Maybe you can trade with one of the quarterback thirsty teams that have one of the top picks in the draft and get one of those draft picks. Maybe get a just what's his name? Drake May. His name is Drake
Drake
May.
May, yeah.
Yeah, maybe get one of those guys, but we'll have to see there. Moving on. Now, same question. However, you're in the Eagles position. Anthony, what are you doing?
What am I doing? Well, I don't think there was ever a confirmation on whether Jason Kelsey retired or not. So I think you want to
Yes.
get clarity on that situation first. Just because it turns out one of the few things that they can do right is the tush push, and Kelsey is one of the best centers in the league, especially for that purpose. So that'll help them, especially when they're those goal yard situations. I would seriously consider Sirianni would need to have a conversation with himself. He needs to learn how to be more mature. He needs to be more of an adult. There's no reason why his quarterback should be teaching him class on the field. And if he can't get that, then go get Bill Belichick. I don't think they have a lot to do. They just need to refocus because that's where it seems to be lacking.
Isaiah?
I would hire Bill Belichick. I would fire Sirianni. You need a coach who can do more than just have somebody put their hands on Jalen Hurts' ass to score touchdowns. You need to learn how to actually run an offense. And maybe that means Brian Johnson's gone too, because I don't think they liked him very much this season at the end
Oh,
in
they hated that
Philadelphia.
game.
So I there's what are you supposed to? Are you supposed to get rid of Swift? No. You're supposed to get rid of Hurts? No. Are you supposed to get rid of Smith? No. You're supposed to get rid of AJ Brown? Maybe. So I don't know what has to change in personnel. It's really just the coaching direction just failed them. And look, we're being harsh on Jalen Hurts because of how they fell off. But this guy was hurt. He was playing through injury, and that's not a real excuse because everybody's playing through injury. It's the NFL. But it was clear he was playing through injury later on. So next season, they're not going to start off the way that they ended. It's going to go back to being the way that they know how to play, especially if they fire Sirianni. And then look, you wouldn't even have to change defensive coordinator. Bill Belichick would get Patricia Wright in order. That's it.
Bill
Man,
Belichick and Matt Patricia running a team together. What could possibly go wrong?
Matt Patricia's the offensive coordinator.
Oh
True. They're
my.
getting rid of Brian Johnson and moving Patricia over to the offense.
I think the answer is pretty simple. I think you have to fire Nick Sirianni. I think seeing that they lost their defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator, both coordinators who got them to the Super Bowl, and seeing how far off of a cliff the team fell off, I think that the person who has to go is Nick Sirianni. I think you do have to hire Bill Belichick. As far as the personnel, you do want to get better on defense, but offensively, I really wouldn't change a thing. Maybe, well, with hiring Bill Belichick, you're going to hire a new offensive coordinator. Hopefully, it's not Matt Patricia. But if you get that good offensive coordinator in there, you can actually have Jalen Hurts be the dynamic dual threat quarterback that he is. You can have Devontae Smith run routes that aren't just going straight towards the end zone, and you can run the ball more, which is something they didn't really do. It was clear when they went to the Super Bowl, their identity was running the ball, and then they would get some play action or some passing off of that. And for some reason, they just completely abandoned that logic. And as you can see, that's how it turns out. You lose by what is that? Quick maths, 23 points. You lose by 23 points to Baker Mayfield in the playoffs, which is embarrassing. So that's what I would do. Just get rid of the head coach, get rid of the coordinators, everybody in the staff, everybody who is under the GM who is not a player has to go. That's how I feel. And you just need to get some new energy in there, someone who actually maybe listens to Jalen Hurts, because I've read things about Jalen Hurts suggesting things about the offense, and turns out that he was right about the things that he's suggesting, and they're just not doing it. I've also heard other things about players not even understanding who is calling the plays, which is completely inexcusable. Apparently, there are times where the offensive coordinator has a play call, and then Nick Sirianni overrules them, and then it's just like, what is going on? So you just have so much dysfunction in that coaching staff. Everybody has to go for that reason. All right, so
Fire the
let's
photographers. Fire the water boys. Fire the mascot. Right in the
let's
jail
stop.
underneath the stadium.
Let's move on from talking about the past. Let's talk about the future. Let's forecast the divisional round coming up. We have the Texans at the Ravens at 4:30 on Saturday. We have the Packers at the Niners at 8:15 on Saturday. We have the Buccaneers at the Lions at 3 o'clock on Sunday. And we have the Chiefs at the Bills at 6:30 on Sunday. All right. So what we're going to do first is we're going to pick the games, and then we're going to talk individually about what we think everybody should be watching for. So the Texans at the Ravens. Vasquez, who wins?
I'm gonna be biased here. I don't care. Lamar Jackson, the MVP, with that number one rushing offense and that triple crown defense. I think they are going to win. Do I think the Texans are gonna make it competitive? Hell yes, and I think it's gonna be the game of the weekend. It'll be a shootout, but the big question in here is this: how much momentum can Baltimore maintain? A lot of their starters did sit out week 18 because they had already clinched the first seed. So if they start off strong, I think they'll do fine.
Agreed. I have to go with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I mean, Lamar Jackson's my favorite player in the league, and rightfully so. I mean, I talk about it every time I talk about Lamar Jackson. When he jumped over that Syracuse defender, he made me a fan, and I'm going to be a fan until
Cordell.
he retires. So that
Yup.
being said, Lamar Jackson having this offense where he can run, he can manipulate the pocket in ways that I've honestly never seen a quarterback do before. Him delivering those passes accurately, him being able to be a running threat as well, and having that great offensive line, having receivers that can actually catch the ball, knock on wood, because you never know with this team. So seeing all that, is that wood?
Oh,
It's drywall, but close enough.
Okay, so if there are any drops during the Ravens game, it's Vasquez's fault because he didn't knock on actual wood. But that being said, I'm picking the Ravens, and the thing that I want to look out for is the quarterbacks. I mean, C.J. Stroud has been amazing. We just talked about that. Lamar Jackson's the MVP. He is going to be amazing as well. I think that it's going to come down to the quarterbacks. Obviously, Lamar Jackson, especially on the defensive side of the ball, has more help, but that Texans defense isn't anything to sleep on either, because D'Amico Ryans has those boys hunting. So, Isaiah, Texans or Ravens? Who wins?
I'm going all favorites in the divisional, so I'm going with the Ravens. Saw this team play twice live. They looked great. Defense is the real star. As much as Lamar deserves MVP, he should be MVP. The defense of this team is going to be the real star. And can they shut down this red hot Texans offense with Stroud, Nico Collins? I'm going Ravens.
All right, moving on. We have the Packers at the Niners. I'm just going to take this one. Let me just get it out the way. The Packers were the bullies last week. The Packers have not seen bullies like the Niners. The Niners are curb stopping the Packers. And I genuinely, I think this is the time where the Packers youth starts to show up and starts to become a real problem for them. And because of that, I have the Niners just bullying them, honestly.
It's not that they start showing up; they started showing up like that in the beginning of the season. I mean, they lost like were they like 2-7, something like that? You're like they look like that early on, but it's interesting. You're going with the game manager on this one. Game
I'm not,
manager
I'm
Brock
not, I'm
Purdy.
not going with the game manager. I'm going with Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, that offensive line, that defense. That's what I'm going with. Brock Purdy
Yeah,
is a
the Niners
good,
got
fine quarterback. He is a game manager.
He's a
Niners got
sneaky
four All
athlete
Pros
too.
on our offense right now. It's
Mhm,
crazy to think about.
mhm. Vasquez, who are you picking?
These Packers are getting mollywopped. It was a good run. I'm sure they'll put up a good fight, but San Francisco is just they're just too damn talented, dude. They're just too good to lose. That's literally what it comes down to. When you got five first team All Pros on your offense alone, that's got to be a record or something. Like they're good and they're coached extremely well.
Do y'all remember this is like 2010 basketball. Zach Randolph, I forgot who he's talking to. I think it might have been DeMarcus Cousins saying, "In my hood, bullies get bullied. The
Yeah,
Niners are the bullies that bully." Isaiah, who are you going with in this game?
the in 49ers Packers.
Yes.
So one of us has to disagree eventually, right? One of us has to disagree. You know what I mean? So I'm going 49ers, but there will be disagreement. We're disagreeing on the next one.
All right, let's move on to the next one. We have the Buccaneers and the Lions. Anthony Vasquez, who wins and why?
Oh man, as much as I want to say the Buccaneers because I love me some shake and bake. I love a quarterback who plays with a chip on his shoulder. I just think this Detroit Lions team is too good. I think they are the Cinderella team of the postseason. I think you got a head coach in Dan Campbell who will have his boys ready to fight and get into a dogfight. We already heard him say in the press conference that he's going for kneecaps. So I think this will really be that game where they show it. So lock in the Lions on that one.
Isaiah.
Guys, the Buccaneers will not be stopped. Okay. Baker Mayfield is on a path to let everyone know Tom Brady was a system quarterback on that Buccaneers
A
offense. That anybody can do it. Let's throw
system
Baker
merchant.
Mayfield out, and I think they're going to keep it rolling. Todd Bowles, he's going to come in with some hard nosed defense on this rolling Lions offense. They're going to shut down those dreams. No wing stop for these Lions fans. Same thing for just like the Pistons. No wing stop for these Lions fans after this one. Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans will have his signature drop in the first quarter, and then he's going lights out the rest of the game. That being said, Lions will win.
Yeah.
You
All
got me
right.
the first half, not gonna lie.
You got me the first half and the third quarter. I out of all the games that we have on this slate, I would not be surprised if the underdog wins because I'm still very skeptical about Dan Campbell's aggression when he's calling plays and when he's just strategizing. But if I'm just picking based off which team is better, I have to go with the Lions. I mean, as long as Jared Goff is able
No, you
to
don't pick which is better. You pick who's going to win.
the Lions. I mean, as long as Jared Goff is able to resist the temptation to throw the big mistake, I think that the Lions are going to be able to out physical the Buccaneers. I don't think it's going to be easy though, because the Buccaneers are also a physical team in their own right. And also on the other side too, like Baker Mayfield also has to resist the urge to just throw it to the blue jerseys. So I think it's really going to be about the quarterbacks, and which quarterback makes the least mistakes is probably going to have be on the team that wins. And the last matchup that we have, this is probably, besides the Texans and the Ravens, probably the most compelling, might be more compelling than the Texans and Ravens. We have the Chiefs at the Bills. This is the first playoff game that Patrick Mahomes will play. That is not the Super Bowl. That is not at Arrowhead Stadium. However, in terms of conditions, is there really a difference between Arrowhead Stadium and Highmark Stadium in Buffalo?
Yeah,
It's
the
probably going
fans
to
are
be
wearing
really
blue.
cold. I said conditions, sir. I meant weather.
That's the condition.
That is
You're
the
gonna be seeing
condition.
blue all
Okay,
over the
okay,
field.
okay. So fans are
You're not
weather
gonna be
now.
seeing red.
So fans are weather now. Apparently, the Bills Mafia can do
You
it
ever
all.
heard
They
of
can
fair
jump through.
weather fans?
They can
This
jump
will
through
not be fair.
tables. They can jump through tables, and they can be the weather. But anyway, we have Patrick
Unfair weather
Mahomes.
fans.
We have Josh Allen on the other side. Something that is going to be huge, especially considering how that last game ended. The last time they met up ended with that controversial call of Kadarius Toney being offsides, offensively offsides, which I still have never ever seen before that. That being said, lots of things going into this game. Isaiah, who wins? Chiefs or Bills?
Buffalo Bills take this one in Orchard Park, New York. The unfair weather fans will be out. They will be loud. They will have just been jumping through burning tables and lots. Okay. Josh Allen, whose interceptions have plagued his career so far, this guy is going to be on point. And you know what's funny? The Chiefs' defense is right there with the best in the league this year, right there with the Ravens in terms of points allowed, but not against this Josh Allen-led Bills team. They've got the fight, they've got the fire. They were out of the playoffs. My supervisor, who's a Bills fan, told me at one point, "Oh, they're going to win out," and they won out. They won convincingly this last week, and they're going to do it again. This is the Tom Brady, Peyton Manning games. This is going to be the time where uh, where Josh finally gets his. This is the time where he proves to everybody, I got one of these in me too. So I'm going Bills, Buffalo, baby.
Anthony Vasquez, how are you picking this?
You know, I appreciate Isaiah saying that we were going to have to disagree at some point. So this is going to be that time where we have to disagree. I will never take the Bills serious until they actually beat the Chiefs. The Bills had
Damn, you
four
gonna steal all my
quarters.
lines?
I'm just saying the Bills had 4 quarters. They couldn't do it. They had the lead with like 30 seconds left. One time they couldn't do it in Arrowhead. Like, come on, like what are we doing here? That being said, I do think that there is a real advantage to playing in Orchard Park finally. You know, getting Patrick Mahomes out of his comfort zone, putting him in a postseason road environment. Taylor Swift, I hope she loves tailgates because burning tables left and right. Um,
She already called the cops, bro.
oh,
She's jumping through them. She's jumping through.
God, gosh dang it. I mean, the thing about the Chiefs is this: they always seem to perform well in the postseason. Receivers couldn't catch a cold, and then all of a sudden, Rashee Rice goes for 8 and 130 and a touchdown. So they just seem to know when to turn it on. I'm gonna always trust Mahomes unless he proves otherwise.
Yeah, I have to agree with Anthony here. I'm going with the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback via eye test, the best quarterback I've ever seen. And he's on the way to being the best quarterback ever. I believe. You have Travis Kelce. You have another receiver that it seems Patrick Mahomes can trust in Rashee Rice, who has been an emerging star. And you also have Pacheco, who just runs like he doesn't care about anything, like straight Air Force energy. He does not care what's going on the other side. He's just running through you. So having that on offense, and notice how I mentioned the offense first, but the real story here is that defense, because that defense is really, really good. I believe that they are a top 5 defense in the league. I believe that out of all the defenses, they are one of the most equipped to stop Josh Allen. And I think that if they are able to take away the air from the Bills and just turn it into a running football game, I think that they can stand up to the Bills offensive line and Josh Allen. So that's why I'm picking the Chiefs. Um, This has been episode 125 of Dome Theory. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and check out all the CLNS content. I'm your host, Nate Sperlin. That is Anthony Vasquez and Isaiah Nins. Make sure you head over to the Old Milk YouTube channel and check out our latest episode reacting to American Dream by 21 Savage. We will be back when I guess Bobby wants to be back. And thanks for watching.